Hey Summoners, how's the new season so far? My name is Nathan and I'll be your host for the patch 12.2 rundown. We're going to be covering all the changes and also provide you with the updated tier list for all 5 roles to give you an idea of what's good and what's not so strong in each role this patch. Make sure to subscribe because we'll be creating a ton of content covering season 12 and you definitely don't want to miss out on that. Without further ado, let's begin with the patch rundown. Before we get into the actual balance changes, let's look at one thing that everybody can agree with Riot as well: the skins. There have been a ton of skins announcements since the last go-around. When the Crystal Rose skin line debuted, the skins were a huge success, so it's no surprise that the skin line has returned. This time we're seeing Crystal Rose skins for Janna and Akshan, with Elise getting the evil withered Rose counterpart. Another popular skin line making a return is Firecracker. This year, the champions getting the skins are Sett, Teemo, Xin Zhao, and Tristana, as well as Diana. These explosive skins look even better than the last batch, so I'm definitely looking forward to grabbing a few, if not all of them. The Teemo one is especially cute. It's not just new skins we're getting. If you haven't already seen the porcelain skins, then you'll definitely want to check them out. The champions receiving those skins are Ezreal, Amumu, Lissandra, Kindred, and Lux, with Lux's skin also getting Prestige Edition. Lastly, there's also Prestige Edition skin coming out for Brave Phoenix Xayah. That is a pretty thick list of skins all on the PBE right now, so there's actually a chance that they'll actually be spread out over the next 2 patches rather than all of them coming out at once. Now, let's go over the system changes. Riot lists Lethal Tempo as being nerfed on this patch, but really it's more of an adjustment. Currently, Lethal Tempo gives 13% attack speed per stack for melee champs and 7% to range. After the change, the attack speed will scale with your level. The new values for that are 10 to 15% for melee champions and 5 to 9% for ranged ones. Personally, I mostly play scaling champs anyway, so I'd like to say that I'm looking forward to this change. That said, if you play Yasuo and Yone, this change will hurt their laning phase and could neutralize the buffs that they're receiving. The changes are definitive nerfs are the changes that we're seeing to Chemtech and Hextech Souls. Hextech Soul is just having some of its damage taken off, but Chemtech is really just receiving a much needed heavier nerf. The zombie bleed out timer is being reduced from 4 to 3 seconds, while the healthy revive width is also being lowered. The thing is, the Soul is so insanely overpowered that it'll probably remain the best in the game even after these huge nerfs. It just won't be as insanely overbearing. Chemtech terrain is also seeing a slight change, reducing how easily people can just slip away into the fog, but increasing the damage amp effect. There's also 2 item buffs coming in. Lichbane is definitely the bigger one of the 2, seeing an increase to its AP ratio, a lowered cooldown, and also some haste slapped onto it. Lichbane is pretty underused right now, so I can see why it's getting some love, but at the same time, it's not like mages need to be any more OP than they already are. The buff to allies is a little bit less great. It's just a minimal stat shuffle with a price reduction and likely won't make much of a difference for the champions that want to build it. That covers the system changes, so let's talk about the upcoming champion changes that we're going to be seeing and how that affects our tier list for this patch. First, we have our top laners. The only champ that's actually moving places on the tier list for this week is Shen, with Shen's Q being the only real source of damage. Losing a full 1% of your target's max HP per hit is really going to cut down on his dueling power. He'll still be good enough to be an A tier pick, but not so strong that you can consistently pick him up into any matchup and expect to win every single fight that you take. Yone is seeing a slight buff to his Q, but since Lethal Tempo's having his attack speed lowered early, his laning phase will be a little bit weaker. All in all, I don't see his overall power changing too much, and if anything, he may be slightly less good than he is now, since top lane can just tend to be a snowbally place. Still, Yone is one of the best scaling champions in the game, so you can always have that late game insurance if you can make it there. It's gonna take a bit more than an extra few points of attack damage and 2 seconds off of Volibear's E to make him worth picking. He isn't the worst champion that you could lock in the top lane, but he definitely isn't anywhere near the best. Even with the big lead, you can't really do much more than just serve as a big, meaty frontline, and in that regard, there are much better picks like Mundo and Malphite. While Riot is making adjustments to turn him back into a support, I think Tom is still gonna be one of the most oppressive things in the game. Now for the jungle, here's our list. The only surprising thing about the nerf Talon is getting is that it took so damn long for Riot to finally push it. It's not gonna completely kill the champion. He will still have insane snowball potential, but he's definitely gonna be a champion that can carry games very hard with constant picks. But his clear speed is being lowered, and you won't be able to snowball as fast and so consistently, and he will actually need to have good pathing to get fed. Zed Jungle has been featured several times on our Wars Champions list quite a few times in the last few months. Being an assassin, he's naturally a snowball reliant champion, but he can just lack that early game all-in damage that it takes to win 1v1 against other junglers. Now with his ultimate doing way less damage, you'll be even less likely to be worth more than a cannon minion. Now here's our mid lane tier list. You can lump Yone and Yasuo together for today's discussion since they're going to be getting the exact same change. 5% AD on their Q's ratio may not seem that big, but when you consider how many times they spam that ability in fights, it can really start to add up. There's also the lethal tempo change to consider. While the lower attack speed may make the laning phase weaker, that won't really hurt them too bad as mid laners. In the top lane, they're prone to being bullied by bruisers and tanks, but in the short mid lane, you can pretty much just safely farm out the game and laning phase and choose to scale up. Once you make it to the later stages of the game, you'll have more attack speed than before from the keystone, and that'll be even more of a 1v9 machine. Zed is losing a bit of his all-in strength via the nerf to his R's base damage, but if you're really good at that champion, that won't actually hurt him too much. This is more of a way to raise the skill floor on Zed, so you can't just mindlessly flash ult and ADC and kill him without even landing your shurikens. The last notable change on this tier list is Veigar's moving up to the A tier. Veigar is one of the best scaling champions in the game, but as a mid laner, he's just a bit lacking overall. The biggest issue has been that when you deal with an opposing laner that comes online quickly, you don't get to impact the rest of the map nearly as fast as them. By the time you're ready to group up, they've already done so much and the game is over. This change will allow you to stack up quicker so you can become more relevant before your team is ready to give up because, you know, kind of like me on Christmas, Veigar has a lack of presence. Now let's move things down to the bot lane. Veigar is moving up to the S tier, and I'd even say that he's a borderline OP tier pick. He's already been an insanely strong pick in the bot lane, but Riot did as Riot has always done. They're so tunneled on his identity as a mid laner that they've fully ignored how the buffs would affect him down there, where he's already above a 52% win rate. While that buff Senna has gotten is pretty huge, we don't really think it's going to make her that much better as an ADC. See the support section to see how we think that you should be playing her. Lastly, for the ADCs we have Samara. Giving her a buff is a nice sentiment, but a measly 5 damage per bullet isn't suddenly going to make her the best ADC in the game. She'll still be strong, but she remains S tier for one big reason. Samara has a lot of hard carry potential, but in lane she can only be really played on one setting, super aggressive. If you aren't going in, you aren't going to be going in and forcing 2v2 fights, and you're not going to be winning the bot lane. But ADCs also aren't the ones that force fights in the bot lane. That's on the supports, especially with Samara's passive. So, she's in the A tier simply because of her reliance of having a competent support and then picking an aggressive engaged champion. That said, if you have a duo and they meet that requirement, you can definitely consider her an S tier pick. To finish things off, we have our supports. While Lulu is on the nerf list, don't be fooled. An extra second on her W cooldown is nowhere near enough to push her out of the OP tier, especially when you factor in the fact that ability haste drops that second to about a half a second. She's still going to be a go-to pick for turbo buffing a hypercarry like Jinx or Vayne and allowing them to 1v9 the game. Now, let's talk about those aforementioned Senna changes. Instead of the constant back and forth of changing her soul count, how much range she gets, or tuning her other numbers, Riot has finally got a bit creative with their approach of balancing Senna. Her Q will now slow by 20%, with an extra 10% being added for every 100 bonus AD and 6% for every 100 AP. The goal of this change is to make up for Glacial Augment's rework. A lot of Senna's strength came from her ability to slow enemies with that keystone. That's why her only successful build at the moment is a tankier one with Frostfire Gauntlet. Now, the opposite is true. You'll want to get as much damage as possible to get that slow as high as you can. Overall, we're giving Senna an A tier rating, but I think she's going to be S tier or even OP tier specifically when paired with the tank or a bruiser, in the old school fasting Senna style. So find you a duo and abuse this as much as you can for some free LP. Now to end the list, we have Tahm Kench. Personally, I'm a big fan of Tahm Kench myself, so I'm always happy to see some buffs for him, but I don't really get why Riot is doing this. Their whole logic behind making him a top laner was that he quickly becomes toxic when he's played as a support. Whatever, that's not what we're here to talk about. If they're gonna do it, we might as well take advantage of it. He's not gonna be overwhelmingly OP, but he's definitely solid enough to go into the A tier. However, just like other multiple champions in the right situation, he will definitely be an OP pick. I think he's the best possible champion to pair with a fasting Senna, just like the old days. Though at that point, he technically isn't a support, right? However you choose to label it, it'll definitely be OP and something that you'll want to learn how to play. Alrighty, that concludes our patch 12.2 rundown. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, feel free to share your thoughts with me in the comments down below. Also, check out the description for a link to join our Discord. Good luck this season, Summoners. I'm hoping for the best for all of you. See you guys next time, and as always, you know the drill. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.